Welcome to Stock Talk with Nico Kritikos. Today we're going to do some stock analysis on Coinbase stock, ticker COIN. And the first thing we're going to look at here is the stock chart. What you're going to see is that since this company went public, it's down 73%. Just in the last year, it's down 64%. And this company is now trading at a market cap of $16 billion. Unfortunately, you're also going to see that I have a position in this where I have 12 shares at $155 a share. I'm down 57% or $1,000. And the reason for that is because I unfortunately got caught up in the whole Cathie Wood mess. I remember when this company went public, it went public at about $250 and it shot up to at least, I think, close to $400. And Cathie Wood made this sound like it was going to be the next big thing. You know, crypto was hot at the time. And so things were looking good. Luckily, I didn't buy in at $300 or $200. I luckily bought in a little bit later when it was down in about the $160 range. So it could be worse, but it's definitely not fun being down 57%. So let's get started with this. I think most people know what Coinbase does. They are the largest app for crypto trading. I think they have at least 50 million users, if not more. It's a huge number. So in the most recent, let's say in the last couple of days, the last week or so, the stock did drop. It's down close to 7%. And that's because I believe it's mainly because of this news here. Coinbase shares fall after the SEC warns on potential legal action. Now, I read their earnings report and they made it sound like they're okay with this and they're expecting regulation to come. They are actually saying it's going to benefit them to some degree. So that's an interesting way to look at it. But if we're looking at my checklist, we're first going to look at revenue and net income. So what we're going to see is from 2019 to 2021, there was huge growth, right? We saw a $500 million, 1.2 billion, and then all the way up to 7.8 billion when crypto was super hot that year. Then it came down. It was down about 50%. And so we definitely have seen some growth, but a lot of growth got pulled into that specific year. And now things are a little bit more rough out there in the economy and in the crypto market. So there's not as much trading volume. And for net income, you see similar growth, but now for 2022, they actually reported a pretty big loss of $2.6 billion. So not something I like to see there. But for the first one, I'm going to give that a check. The next one, I'm going to give it a no because of that huge loss they reported for last year. If we're looking at price to earnings, this one is tough because they haven't been public that long. But as of right now, the P ratio is negative, right? Because they lost money. On this website, it says the forward PE is a 60. So that is very high. And if we're looking at a $60-something stock and they're expected to still be losing money for this year and possibly next year, that makes this look really bad because that P ratio is sky high. So then we can go ahead and look at, let's say, the price to sales ratio, right? Because normally you would do that if the company is losing money. So here's another example, though. There's not a ton of, it's not like we have a ton of data to look at, but you can see the price to sales was a 6 about a year ago, and it dropped down to a 1.8 at some point, and now we're sitting around a 5 once again. So the stock's not in the best place, unfortunately, but that's why I'm going to give this a no. If we're moving on, I would definitely call this company innovative with the whole crypto thing. And I would say they have a moat because of how many users they have. If we look up number of Coinbase users, we're going to see, let's see, company said it had 8.3 monthly users, but I believe, yeah, see, so no, this says Coinbase, approximately 110 million verified users. So they actually had a lot more than I thought. 100 million verified users, but about 8 million monthly users. So that's that. And that's why I would say they have a moat, as well as they're innovative with the whole crypto space. A growing industry, yes, the crypto trading industry is supposed to grow at about a 12% rate for the next however many years, probably for the rest of the decade. So that's going to get a check. As for return on invested capital, we are going to find that return on invested capital for this company has been anywhere from negative 30% last year to 31% the prior year. And since this company did pretty high numbers right there, I'm going to give this a check, even though it's been negative. I mean, the way I look at it is they're still new to this, but they've proven that they can have 20 to 30% return on capital numbers. So that's good enough. Growing equity without goodwill. This one is tough too. Once again, in the last year, their equity is down. Okay, I actually have their balance sheet from their report right here. So the interesting thing about this is it's going to say liabilities 84 billion, assets 89 billion. But the majority of that, we're going to see here 75 billion is in customer crypto assets. So that's just what all the users are, all the users' assets that they're putting on the balance sheet. Their real equity is only $5 billion, and it was 6 the year prior. But if you look at the previous years, we're going to see here that they actually started out at only $500 million of equity 3 years ago, and they've built it up quite nicely. They pretty much have over 10x their return on their equity. So that's saying something. I'm going to give that a check. Is the equity over 15%? Yes, they have $5 billion of equity with a $16 billion market cap, definitely over 15%. Share count decrease? No, unfortunately not. We haven't really seen that yet. Once again, this is a new growing company. They've had plenty of years where they're not profitable. So I don't think we're going to see anytime soon them buying back shares to a big degree. So from 2020 to 2021, that share count really went up big time. That's not the best sign. And then 2022 was stagnant. So overall, I would give that a no. The assets are definitely not twice the liabilities. They're really not even close if we look at so how I said, the majority of it is in users' assets, but not long-term assets of 3.2 billion, long-term liabilities of 3.4. So they're actually negative there. If we're looking at current assets, we see, right around 6 billion, I would say, of current assets. And then we're looking at maybe $500 million. So let's see. So yeah, they barely have positive. It's 100, it's not even close. It's almost break even. Their equity is should almost be zero. Profit margin of over 10%. Yes, I gave this a check. We're going to see here, it's the same thing where, we don't have a lot of data for this company, but although they've had multiple years and quarters of negative numbers and being unprofitable, we've also seen them prove that in a hot market, if the time's right, they can put up amazing numbers. So that's the way I'm looking at this. And I think the real question here, if you're interested in being an investor, is just what's your perspective on the entire crypto market? Because the one thing I will say is it's not easy to get 110 million people using your platform, or even 8 million monthly active users for that matter. Either way you look at it, it's not easy to do that. I don't think any crypto company can just come in there and, they can definitely take some market share away, but they're not going to be able to get to that scale very easily. That's why I think if you're somewhat bullish on the crypto market at all, that it would make sense to own this stock. And that's kind of the reason. That was a large part of my reasoning going into this, investing into this company. Looking back, after I invested into all those Cathie Wood stocks, my perspective on investing has totally changed over the last 1 to 2 years, just because of, I realized, things aren't always in that type of bull market where everything is flying up. So I definitely have changed my perspective to investing in less risky companies, investing in companies that are not profitable. I'm not really interested in that too much anymore, and just things like that. But crypto is one of those wild card things where we don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but there's a good chance it's going to keep growing from here, and it's only going to become a more and more important part of the economy. So that's kind of like my bet on. I own a little bit of Bitcoin, but my bet on the crypto market is really through Coinbase, because I think they're gonna, if crypto it does continue to grow and grow and grow over the next decade, Coinbase should be a huge beneficiary of a lot of that growth. Cash more than average annual income, yes. Remember, income has been negative. It's been $1 billion, a couple $1 billion, and they have over $5 billion. They have about $5 billion in cash, so that gets a check. No dividend for this company, and this company is not over 20 years old. So that's always something I like to put on there. It was founded in 2012. It's only 11 years old. That's something I have on here because I think that adds risk to the investment. Is if you're investing in a company that's 5 or 10 years old, I think that does have, we haven't seen enough of how it performs in bad markets. And this is a good example of that, especially when not only if that company is young, but you need to look at when did that company go public? Because this is another good example of you need to see data for, I believe, at least 4 to 5 years of data to get a better idea of how this stock performs. Like I want to see at least 5 years of data. That's why I don't like buying in IPOs. So that's one way to look at it. It needs to build a shareholder base as well. That's something that needs to happen. And I just like to see more experience with the company and see what they can prove before I invest in a super young company. But overall, this would get a score out of 8 out of 14. Not considered a buy, although I did buy this. So so the stock's down 14% today. And I believe, let's see, crypto will be over in the US if Coinbase loses the battle with the SEC. See, so you still got speculation like that going on. It's really up in the air. It's a wild card right now. 43 million shares for the volume today. That's huge. So I think I'm going to probably hold on to this. I mean, I don't really want to sell right now when I'm down $1,000. But if it comes back up to, let's say, the $100 range, I might sell some shares. It's tough. I'm really trying to exit these positions, these money-losing companies, these riskier companies, as much as I can without having to take a huge loss on it. So that's my thought process. That's what I'm trying to balance with these investments. And yes, I will keep you updated. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next